Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Those Who Wish Me Dead. Now, this is the latest film from Taylor Sheridan, who's over the 2010s became a major kind of action law enforcement screenwriter with Sicario, Hell or High Water. He also wrote and directed Wind River, and does that show Yellowstone, which I've never watched. And then this is his second feature, which he has written and directed. And usually what he does is he uses a location, whether it be Texas, the US-Mexico border, wherever Wind River was. And in this, he's using the forests of Montana and uses that to kind of inform. He's very much if you want to use the cliche, the location is the other character, whatever, blah, blah, blah thing. I think one of the things that works best with his style is, everyone says, oh, they're macho guy things, which I agree with. He's good at in Sicario, he's good at kind of playing with the structure of it. He clearly gets a good action movie structure, which I think that's one of the pros of this film. But I also think what he works better with when he has other people direct his stuff, but work best in Hell or High Water, which I think is the zenith point of his creative style, even though Sicario is still the first one, very good, is all the characters in it, meaning like Chris Pine and Jeff Bridges and Ben Foster. Like, you kind of love the movie as much for the crime and the violence and stuff as much as you love like all the characters in it. There's so many. I think there's like whoever played the waitress, I forget that actress right now, surprised me in how much I really liked her in that little role. Like, it has some, and it uses like Texas and Texan culture as kind of like a fun thing, and it adds an extra kind of dimension to it. And I think other directors, whether it be Denis Villeneuve or whichever guy directed Hell or High Water, have a lot of fun playing with that. But when he directs his own stuff like Wind River and this, it often gets a little too serious, to be honest. I think another director would add a little more flair, a little more fun to it, and Taylor Sheridan doesn't seem to want to do that. Although Wind River was very overly serious and like kind of violent towards women, and it wasn't like a perfect kind of first feature kind of thing. But this is almost like someone listened or kind of realized the problems with that film and tried to make a better, but also very lean action movie. He seems like he gets like what you want from him. He's not going to try to change artistically, and that's kind of glamorous in a way because we don't have many action directors like that anymore who work as efficiently as this guy seems to. Now, in this with Angelina Jolie, who's I guess the lead, this is kind of her star vehicle or whatever. It's about a kid and his dad. His dad is a kind of forensic accountant, and he sees something. We never find out what it is, but it doesn't really fucking matter. But so they go on the run because they know Aidan Gillian and Nicholas Hoult are after them, not with American accents, so they mean business. They're after them, and they will destroy and kill whoever stands in their way to kind of cover up whatever they're covering up. I don't know, who cares. They drive off and wind up in Montana in the forest, where Angelina Jolie is a forest firefighter who stays on a fire tower to see if a forest fire is coming, and then calls it in and hopefully tries to stop it after she had a traumatic experience, I'm assuming like a year ago or something, where there was a forest fire and she watched a bunch of young boys burn to death because she couldn't save them. And so she has to save this young boy against these assassins who've also, of course, started a forest fire, because why would you have her be a forest fire person if you're going to have a forest fire, and has to save herself, and John Barenthal is also involved with his pregnant wife. This is a very lean, kind of entertaining action thriller. And for the most part, I think at the beginning, when Angelina Jolie keeps going on about the trauma she's been through and stuff, and it's like, it felt honestly more like a 70s, 80s action thing where they weren't going to have that much action at the beginning of it, and you just have to sit through them doing all this like character development stuff, and they're like thinking they're deep, and you're just like, I really didn't come to this movie for this, man. Could you just like pick it up? I'm sure you wanted this, but I don't. That part is as inessential as those parts feel, because we know what this is. Let's just like, you didn't even tell me what the forensic accounting was about. Like, let's just not even act like this is something a little more. You're gonna win some Oscar for this, but they do it anyway. They're really committed to that, and a large portion of the beginning part of the film is that. But once it gets into the thriller part and they've set all this stuff up, it does play out well. I have to give him credit for that. As a screenwriter, I think even though it feels like he took too long on that, it all does sort of pay off, so you're not really that angry at it later on. She is kind of making supposedly dangerous decisions. Angelina Jolie, her character at least, she like jumps out of a car after she's drunk with a parachute. That just looks like fun, to be honest. I wouldn't do it, but it looks like fun. Her character is interesting, and her portrayal is interesting because you see her be traumatized by these kids. It's all this thing. She's making dangerous decisions, typical like action movie thing. Once she's helping this kid, she becomes like very maternal, very much like almost like she knows exactly what to do with this kid. Like she has kids of her own or something, which she doesn't. They never talk about anything like that in the movie. And she like has like games to like kind of like jokey games to do with the kid. Like she knows exactly like, oh, here, eat this, like perfect kind of foods for him and stuff. And it plays off of like there's been 100 of these Angelina Jolie like kind of action thrillers this whole time, and we're all used to that as an audience. But there's like nothing to demand that in her performance. She just kind of does it, and it really works. I think it works for the movie, and I would actually like it if we just got like Angelina Jolie action movies like the way we get Liam Neeson ones. I think that would be great, particularly after watching this movie, because she's really good actually. When you look at the character at the beginning, like wouldn't she be totally weirded out by the kid first? Like she's just like, oh yeah, I totally know what to do. I'm like so great. Like they talked about how she's like a great babysitter or something. Like it's just like comes sort of out of nowhere, but she plays it so well. She's such a good actress that you're kind of like, sure, you just go along with it, which I think like I would like to see her do more stuff like this. I thought she was really good. It reminded me like, oh right, this is why she is a movie star person. John Barenthal kind of does the opposite because well, not entirely, but because we know what John Barenthal's like, and he gives a very John Barenthal performance, and that's fine. Aidan Gillian and Nicholas Hoult are very good at being the threatening kind of mercenaries sent out, and they're not given enough manpower, which I think is another like Taylor Sheridan thing, is like, you know, an underfunded kind of police department or an underfunded law enforcement, underfunded something, like trying to make the best and do the best they can to solve this sort of thing. I like that he showed that same kind of sympathy towards the villains. That was a good touch. The weird cameo from Tyler Perry was like, I don't get that at all. I don't understand that, like what they're doing there. Maybe him and Taylor Sheridan are like buddies and they thought it would be cool, but it's like such a random ass cameo. It's like he might as well have been Medea in that part, because it was just like really took me out of it. When Tyler Perry isn't in a Tyler Perry movie, it like is really obvious the whole time to me. Like I know he like wants to be an actor outside of his own films, but it's just like, it's so weird that he's here. The only time I like accepted him was Gone Girl in someone else's movie. I mean, anyway, but this really works in terms of like all these little things coming together, like a forest fire, a kid on the run, Angelina Jolie's existential dilemma or whatever, all coming together. And I think one of the things Taylor Sheridan, like he clearly like actually listened to the criticism of his films, or it just worked out this time. I don't know. I know he has like, he helped write Without Remorse too, so he's like really riding the you know, dad action movie train right now. And he has Yellowstone, which again I haven't watched, but people tell me he's good. I don't know. In Wind River, he showed a lot of kind of mistreatment towards women, a lot of violence towards the female characters, and that in this, like most of the female characters, or the two that are prominent, Angelina Jolie and Medina Segor, I believe, were really kind of the highlights and stand-ups of this film. I don't think you'd think she was going to have the most badass moments, and she kept having them, and she was really good. It did really feel like he was like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that every time, and I should grow as a screenwriter. And I think it showed like a way more interesting kind of narrative, because if it had just been John Barenthal and Angelina Jolie, like this, that's the one thing, like this very much rides the line of like, these are the beats I need to hit for one of these. It's like paint by numbers in a certain like storyteller construction way, and this is very much made and written in a craftsman type way. But like that's the argument, is what I hear oftentimes is, what is better, a good craftsman or a good, like, you know, innovator? And I don't think Taylor Sheridan is an innovator whatsoever, but he is a really good craftsman. And this shows like what works about him as a craftsman, but he understood like how he has to change his craft around sometimes. And it works in a very economic kind of storytelling way. That's really what I like about it. It doesn't have the character as much in this, which I do think is lacking, but it felt like he's like sort of getting better and improving. And like I'm even more excited for his third feature, like whatever that ends up being, because it feels like he's adding more character. He's getting what works about his screenwriting. He's understanding himself as a writer more, and you got that through this. You know, maybe presumably because of the way directors work and editing and all that, the scripts for Sicario and Hell or High Water were very different from what was made into a finished film. And this feels like someone kind of understanding not only his writing, but but also how to direct his own writing, which I think other directors, often you see that with writers who become directors. Like, you almost feel like other directors directed their screenplays differently, and it feels like he's sort of getting what was special about the direction in those films with his own writing. I'm kind of curious about that, how he's going to do that overall. I think it'll be really interesting when we see that play out. But this was just a very tight movie. You know, it's the kind of film, like, if you got into Taylor Sheridan and you're doing a marathon, it's a, you know, good one late in the marathon to just get you through to the next one, and you're not going to regret doing it. It's the kind of solid kind of thing that, like, doesn't speak out much, and even though it has, like, that title is not great. Those Who Wish Me Dead. Those Who Wish Me... Yeah, I keep forgetting it. I was like, I don't know, the Angelina Jolie fire thing. Couldn't we have called it that? That would have been a better title than Those Who Wish Me Dead. Like, I don't think anyone says it. There's no titular line, because no one would fucking say that, because it's so unnatural. It's like a terrible title. But in certain things in it, like, I think they talk about how they're in the eye of the forest fire, and Angelina Jolie says it's, like, you know, beautiful. And I was like, a cooler director would have had this cool experimental part with the forest fire, and we, like, would have been, like, kind of scared and frightened by the whole thing, and it could have, like, been this beautiful sequence. And in this, it's just like, yeah, they'll just perform it. I don't know, which was fine. I think this worked for what it needed to be. This was very much like someone understood how to make cheap beer and did it very well, and we all had a good time, and we all left and were completely satisfied by it. And that's what Taylor Sheridan did in a very craftsman-like way. You kind of got the hint that he could be maybe even better next time, and a hint of that he got what he did wrong last time, which is something I actually like to see from filmographies, when you actually see, like, a notable improvement, and improving in the ways you'd want him to improve. Like, this is something, like, if it was on TV and I was just folding clothes, I'd just put it on for a little bit. It's one of those kind of, like, junky little, like, I needed to eat something for lunch, and this completely satisfied me and moved on. It's nothing special, it's nothing too spectacular, but it is exactly what it needs to be. And I think that's the kind of stuff Taylor Sheridan makes. So in a way, it's like kind of like almost like artistic intent and everything. It, like, kind of came together almost as perfectly as a forest fire. That was a terrible ending. Never mind. So if you've seen Those Who Wish Me Dead and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.